Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Inside Mentors Minds, where we dive deep into amazing humans and find out what got them to where they are today. And today we have a very special guest who I'm very curious to find out about her work. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here with you, Matt.
Yes, and Sara, you're coming in from England, but had lived here in Bali. We were just talking before we got on the podcast about how you've actually spent 2 years here and then moved back to England. For the listeners, and I guess you could just touch upon it again for me too. What's life like now? Difference between living in Bali, and you said you've been to Bali 5 years before this as well. Do you just want to talk about some of the differences you've experienced from being in Bali to now being where you are in England today?
Totally. I love that question. So, Bali, I first experienced, it would have been around 5 or 6 years ago when I went I was there for a month for a holiday. And I did all of the usual things. I did a yoga retreat. I was exploring the different parts of town. And it was just such an eye opening, phenomenal experience to just be so free, ride around on your scooter, like eat all of the incredible food. But at that time, you know Shady Shack obviously very well. One of the most popular cafes, a vegan cafe, it was pretty much Shady Shack, and then a few other cafes. Then you had the beach, you had one beach bar. There was really nothing else in between. There were a few yoga places. So it was really, really sparse, and there was this tiny community. And then I came back to live there, and I lived there for a couple of years, and that was in 2018, I think. And the difference then was that it had become so busy. There were so many shops and cafes. There was such a bigger community. But I absolutely loved it. It wasn't for the worse. It was like people who had really come together to be entrepreneurs or to be spiritual and to have these experiences. So you're able, I found, to come into Bali and to just meet people who are so like minded and so expansive. And I actually came over there for a couple of months thinking, I'll just stay for a little while I exit out of my career because I'd been working as a fashion buyer for like 10 years. I thought I'll just transition out of this career and I would love to work in health and wellness. And Bali is just the perfect hub
Mm-hmm.
to do that. It's obviously this hive of health and wellness. So I transitioned into Bali for a couple of months and I just absolutely fell in love with the way of living and the people and the freedom and the opportunity and the way that I could really learn and be with my business and live so well and become so healthy. So I ended up staying, and that went on for a couple of years because partway through that, it was March, obviously 2020, when Corona hit. So in March 2020, Corona hit, and I would say 85 or 90% of the expat community left, which left us being back into Bali, which had been the Bali I'd previously originally known, which was like, yeah, there's a lot more cafes, but the people are so heavily reduced. And all of a sudden, we were this tiny community again. There was no traffic on the road. You could be the only person on the beach. And it was so beautiful. It was so peaceful. You know, the pollution really minimized. So you could look out at the sky and actually see the volcanoes in the distance. Like it went really back to being this beautiful little quiet piece of Bali, which felt a lot more spiritual, a lot more um, easily able to connect, if you like, to something deeper and to the meaning of the land. I found myself connecting with more Balinese people and starting to pick up the language a little bit more because I was having that experience. And then at the end of last year in December, I made the decision to transition out of Bali only because I had been separate from a partner and friends and family for such a long time that there was a need for me to go and take that journey to see them and spend some time. So I spent a few months in Arizona and I've been in the UK for 4 months. And this has been my real experience of Corona in a completely different way,
Mm.
where I grew up in the UK. So I'm very used to being here, but now being in the UK is a very different experience. You don't really see so many people. Everybody's very cautious. You wear a mask. It's just a completely different experience to obviously the life I'd had before. I'm living in the countryside, and it's just me in the countryside a lot of the time, which I absolutely cannot complain about. And it's a case I have noticed of needing to invite my Bali life into my
Mm,
current experience, which I'm so grateful for the use of technology and podcasts and social media from that perspective, because I can maintain a level of awareness and education and connection with people that I otherwise might have lost connection with in this space. So the difference really between coming back to the UK now is like, wow, coconut water comes out of Sainsbury's. I'm used to somebody chopping it off the tree and delivering it to my house on a moped. And I'm used to being at the beach in 5 minutes, and the sun shines every day. So
yeah.
it's very, very, very different. It's a very you come to England thinking, why do you guys make it so hard?
Mm,
Like over in Bali, the way of living is just so convenient, and it's just so relaxed, and it's all about living the best life you can live and being in the best shape, and being in the best spiritual form, the best physical form, the best mental form that you can be. So it's lovely to come back. It's really lovely. But you have to work, I would say, a little bit harder in this environment to be aware of the energies that are coming into your body, because they may be in some way out of alignment with the type of energy you would actually like to carry yourself. So it's something to be really aware of, how your environment affects you. But yeah, it's been such a lovely experience to come back to. And it connects me even more deeply with Bali, actually.
I love that. That is,
Mm.
this is great, especially for me because I am
Yeah.
here in it right now. So like, I'm trying to take as many notes for if and when I have to. Sometime I kind of want. It sounds like what you're getting is contrast. You're getting
Yes.
contrast, and
Yes.
so I want to prepare myself as much as possible to embrace it. But I also love hearing your experience, so that like one of the things I really try to do is not take things for granted. And so I think,
Mm.
well, you're here and you're in that flow, like you just said, even just worrying or being cautious of the energies that are around you in your environment and having to bring
Mm.
Bali to where you are today. It's like, I'm just in it. That's not something I have to be aware of. I can like open myself up to it here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really fascinating. So I really appreciate that. That's a question I wanted for myself. Now, as far as your work goes, if anyone's coming across you for the first time, do you just want to give them and myself a little bit of a deeper understanding of your work that you facilitate or the
Yes.
transformation?
So I'm a human design practitioner, breathwork facilitator, meditation teacher, and wellness coach. And essentially, those four modalities have been a journey for me that I picked up one at a time, and they've synthesized to come together. And the reason I've brought those modalities together is because now what I really practice and teach is knowledge and empowerment through learning and education, but transformation through embodiment and being in the body and understanding the relationship that we have with our mind, but also the rest of our spiritual and physical form that needs to come into play for us to really create transformation in our lives and really live the best kind of version of ourselves that we can be. So I'm going to break it down for you and talk to you really about human design, because I know that there'll be some people listening to this that are like, I have never heard of that, and
Yeah.
some people that will be in the field of knowing what it is. So, human design is a system, and it's a synthesis of quantum physics, the chakra system, Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, and the Jewish Kabbalah. And these five systems synthesize to create an entirely unique flavor, an entirely unique system, which has its own motivations and its own goals and its own knowledge base. So essentially, every single human being has their own unique birth chart. And the birth chart is based on your birth date, your birth time, and your location. And when you open that up and see it for the first time, what you're going to get is it looks a bit like a human. It's got 9 energy centers, and these look like the chakra system, but there are 9 of them. It's
Mhm.
got 64 gates, and these come from the I Ching. And then,
And sorry, Sarah, I'll just show it on the screen. The
yeah,
listeners on the
perfect.
podcast can't really see, but yeah, this is what Sarah's talking about. So all the
Yeah.
systems that are there and all that. It's the human design right there. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And that's your unique chart. And then as you go more deeply into it, you've got astrology, you've got all these other kind of elements that come together. What human design essentially does is gives us this perfect balance of nature versus nurture. It it depicts who we are as a natural, authentic, soulful being. And you have defined or activated energies in your chart. So the defined and activated energies, they give us kind of predictable behavioral patterns. They give us the dominant parts of your personality. They give us the places that you're fixed, stable, and that you have energy to project out into the world. So the places on your chart that you see white space, this is what we call openness. So the openness are the places that you are vulnerable to receiving energy in from the world around you. These are the places that you are open and prone to conditioning. These are the places that you're more changeable and that you're actually moving through life, receiving energy and learning what feels good, what feels bad, how to behave in the world as a human, if you like. So, what happens is that you bring together your definition and your openness, and it takes you on this journey of your soul version and your life purpose of your chart coming together and trying to work in sync with each other to create a more smooth journey. So, when I look at somebody's human design chart, I can essentially pick through the places which they are more likely to be conditioned, and I can understand where they would have had a more erratic or, let's say, difficult version of life growing up. And then I can look in there and see the gifts that they have, see the natural talents, see the places where they are likely to be struggles. So every energy within the chart has a shadow side and then a gift. So essentially, I like to think of it as like, as human beings, we're all coded. We're all completely coded to move through these shadow energies that live inside of our design. And as you embrace and overcome each shadow, you can move into the gift, move into the higher purpose. And that's where you shine, and that's where you start to become more of your higher self. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's
What?
always also known as the science of differentiation, because what we really want to do with human design is understand that every single human being is so complex and so unique and so unbelievably different in their way of being to everybody else, that it's just looking at yourself and saying, this is how I do it and that is perfect. This is how they do it and that is perfect. So it takes judgment, out judgment of yourself, judgment of other people, because none of us are ever designed to be the same.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, the fact that
Yeah.
I have it up right now, so I'm looking at, so like for me, I'm like just so curious about it. And the way
Mm,
you're describing it in some way, how it looks like, I'm sure like the way you kind of cliff notes it, but it is fairly complex from especially
very.
from when you first look at it. So I'm looking at mine right now, and I love how you said that there's this shadow element, but then the gift element. When you say the shadow element, is that the non-self theme?
There's shadow in both sides. So take, for example, when you look at your chart, you see those numbers. There are 64 of those. Okay, so if you roughly every human has around 20 of those defined. That means colored in their chart. So where you're activated and you have this fixed stable energy to project, every single one of those gates, it's like an archetype. Do you see the little numbers?
Oh, that's what the numbers represent.
Yeah. So they're all archetypes, and
So
they come from the Chinese I Ching.
okay, so like say in that lower sacral chakra, right? Those that all those numbers have representations, and
Yeah,
those are all gates. And then do you
exactly
reference
that.
them to the
So
sides here? Is that how you read it?
yes. So where they sit here in the side, in basically, you can have a gate, and if it sits in your sun sign, that's the most prominent part of your personality. That's the most dominant thing you have to share with the world. If it were to sit in Saturn, for example, This might be a place that you're likely to be a bit challenged, tested, that you've really got to move through that shadow in order to get to the gift. So all of the gates are archetypes, and every archetype represents a different part of the human experience. Like, say, for example, in your chart, I see the gate 58, which represents joy. So this is about being deeply connected to joy. This is somebody who's here to bring a spark of energy and enthusiasm and joy within their relationships. So that's an example of one of the gates. And then there'll be another gate that represents wisdom and knowledge and depth and study. So as you move through each of the archetypes, you start to create a story, because your collection of archetypes will be different to someone else's collection of archetypes.
Uh-huh. Wow. Wow. I mean, I mean, when I look at it, it's just like, but now when you start breaking it down, it becomes like, yeah, more than just like a little system there. That's much
Yeah.
complex.
I mean, it is such a complex system, but at the same time, because as human beings, we could never be a formula. It's like we're taking a system to articulate something that can never be a formula. So it will manifest in its own way, depending on the experience you've had through life, things like this.
Okay, so how did you get into this? And before you answer that, I'm so curious. Usually someone that has gotten into something like this has also had a challenging experience which propelled them to get into that. Has
Yes.
this happened to you?
Absolutely, yes. I totally agree with you. Nobody comes into health wellness coaching unless they've got a story to tell, because we come looking for something, right?
Mm,
So I, like I said, I worked in the fashion industry for like 10 years, and I did it in London, I did it in Sydney, and I was working in Sydney. And for the last 3 years of my career, I was, classic corporate story. I was done.
mhm,
My values and the company values were heading very much out of alignment with each other. And I'd always been into health and wellness. And I always knew that was like my second career choice, if you like.
mhm,
And I basically, at the end of my time in Sydney, I was waiting to get a permanent visa. So I got my permanent visa, which meant I was free to leave the country and come back, which was great.
mhm,
And I knew I was ready to leave. So I was finishing up that career. I was collecting my visa. I was just saving some money so that I could make this transition. And I thought, I'm going to go over to Bali and I'm going to learn yoga and meditation and nutrition and all the things. And then I'm just going to figure it out.
mhm,
And when I was about to leave Sydney, I was studying lots of things on the side, and I was listening to every podcast that ever existed in the health and wellness realm. And I was really going down that rabbit hole. Like, I adore podcasts. And on one of them, there was this conversation around human design. And obviously it sparked my interest. And I, I found it, I found my chart, and the way that my own chart articulated me better than
mm,
I could ever have articulated myself
mhm,
just had me instantly hooked. So I started obsessively researching online anything I could find, and I started collecting birth information for my friends and family, and I'm like researching everything. Little did I know that as I was going through my design, I was like, oh, the fact that I'm doing this is in my design. Like, of course I'm researching everybody else's. It says that's what I'll do right here. So I was having all of these strange aha moments, like where the chart was telling me, this is what you do, as if it was catching me in the moment. And I'm like, that is what I do. Like, is somebody
mm,
watching me? It was so bizarre. So, but amazing. And that's how it started. And as I made the transition into Bali, I did a yoga teacher training, and I did a meditation teacher training, and I was doing wellness coaching, and I just kept coming back to the human design thing. It was a really, really big commitment at the time. And I took some time, a lot of time, to think about it and be with it and just absorb it. And then eventually I thought, this is the piece. This is the piece I keep coming back to. So I started studying it, and I did the full practitioner training. And you asked me, yes, about my journey. So there are 5 energy types within the human design system. And this is quite significant. So, first and foremost, when you come into human design, I like to suggest to people that they approach it in layers, because there are many layers. The first layer is type. There are only 5 of those. So everybody fits into one, and it is, let's say, somewhat generic because there's only 5 of them. It's when you go into your chart that you get the real personal elements. But your type will also be very, very telling because it speaks of the way you manage your energy, the way you're designed to work in the world, and an essential kind of higher purpose that you have. Now, I'm a projector, which is 20% of the population. And when you consider that there are 70% generator types, the projectors are quite rare and they are the newest of all the types. So we were ushered in to create this new era within humanity where people start to learn that there's something outside of work. We're essentially,
Mhm.
we are the burnout generation, is kind of my belief. We are like, everything has been about work for so long, and people have been driven to just work and succeed and achieve and climb the ladder, and everybody's energy has been conditioned to be working in the way of the generator type. So when I, a projector, discover my chart, you're also a projector, Matt, for the first time, there tends to be some very deep aha moments for the projectors, especially for one like me, because I have only 2 of the centers defined. I had a hell of a lot of openness in my chart. I had 7 open centers. So I look at my chart, and first and foremost, I was a bit upset. I was a bit disappointed because I was like, well, that's not an easy chart, and that's also not how I've been behaving for my entire life. Like, so I had this feeling of disappointment, and then but it was so true. And I suddenly realized, like, a projector is about being a gentle guide, somebody who has quite a strategic mind, somebody who's here to see and know the truth of other people, but absolutely finds it very difficult to know the truth of themselves. There's somebody who is on this journey seeking truth of who they are, and is always on a journey of self-discovery. It's also about, okay, projectors are here to work and rest, work and rest. We're not here to work in the traditional sense of the word. So we're actually here to be more observant, more strategic, more present, and more restful, and to be very, very wise about energy. So, and as a very open projector, and I could look back at my life and realized all of the places I'd been so deeply sensitive. So, if you like, traumatized around this conditioning of needing to fit in, never really being my authentic self through growing up. Because as soon as I got to, double digits, let's say 10, 11 years old, and I went to secondary school, the amount of energy I was receiving was so overwhelming, but I had no idea. And I was constantly molding myself, changing myself, merging myself to, to fit in, to be accepted, to become like everybody else, because I was receiving everyone's emotions, everyone's thoughts, everyone's feelings. And I was constantly just tweaking and adapting myself to be more like everybody else. And when I saw my own chart, I was like, wow, I'm not meant to be like everybody else. I am very sensitive, and actually taking that time out and taking that time to rest and taking that time to nurture these little parts of my spirit, which felt very strange as a teenager, very unusual. Um, Became like this permission slip to step back from forcing myself to be merged into everybody else, and to be in my own aura, and to understand my own gifts and talents and the way that they work. So as a teenager, I'd lent on so many things, from food to different destructive behavioral patterns, which were all just feeding my insecurities, if you like. So that was really the lesson for me. It was just seeing me and feeling so emotional about this little child who had never been allowed to just be the little delicate projector that she was, because I'd always been, you must fit in, you must work like in this way, you must use your energy in this way, you must be strong, you must not feel your emotion.
Mm.
So it was just these layers and layers and layers that had been built up around me to protect myself from what felt like something of an intimidating world. So that was the journey for me with human design.
Wow. And so now, um, after looking at your human design and getting all these like downloads and ahas, and you're like, wow, like I really got to go deeper into it. With receiving the information from human design, how has it now helped you with life and energy management and your life now?
When I now look back to my life before human design, I realize it's hard to even attach to because I don't think in the same way. It's like my entire way of thinking has changed. My entire way of being a human has changed. Um, so human design gives you some really strategic tools, let's say. Each energy type has a strategy and an authority. So your strategy as your energy type is the way that you are designed to create in the world. It's the way that you're designed to initiate and, if you like, manifest the things that you want to happen. So this is a really big piece because we as humans are really conditioned and designed to believe that, you're an island, you go out into the world, you make stuff happen, you have an idea, you force it, and you just keep forcing until you get the job done. We're designed to operate so heavily out of our minds, which is like, your mind is this incredibly powerful, amazing tool, but it is absolutely, according to human design, it is not the authority. It is not it doesn't know everything. Actually, when we operate from inside of our minds, we're constantly limiting ourselves to what we know up there and what we believe up there. And what we believe up there often stinks a little bit because it comes from a lot of conditioning, which may or may not be conducive to a healthy lifestyle. So the strategy is in place to help you actually co-create with the universe. It's in place to help you understand that you are not an island and that your mind doesn't know everything and it doesn't make all the decisions for you. So I'll give you another example of the projector strategy, which is to wait for the invitation.
Mm.
And this simply means that for the bigger things in life, we are designed to have ideas, have inspirations, to think and feel, but to just wait and to nurture our energy for long enough that we allow something to come in from the world around us, which is like a breadcrumb, an invitation, a piece of recognition. And that's how we move forward with big things such as jobs, relationships, financial investments. It's like a support from the universe coming in just to show you the paths that are available to you. Instead of using this unsustainable kind of energy source that we have and spraying it all over the place and hoping that something sticks. It's like just nurturing yourself for long enough to follow these breadcrumbs. So now the way that I work is and the way that I create is to co-create with the universe and to constantly be observant of everything that's happening around me all the time and recognizing it as a mini prayer that's been answered, or recognizing it as a sign that's here for me or for somebody else. And then the authority is your decision making center. So everybody has within their chart their own authority center. And this, it's never the mind, just as an FYI, because we are designed to believe that our mind controls everything. And the only reason, the way I like to trying to help people understand this is to say that your mind speaks in language, which is why we hear it, right? But if your stomach could speak to you in words and it was constantly saying to you, don't eat that, that makes me feel bad, stop, put the donut down, we would listen, right? But we don't, because it's just quietly in there processing. Our mind is processing in language. So it's so dominant, we're listening to everything it says. But if you stop using your mind as your authority center, because what happens is you go up there, you rationalize, you come up with every possibility from the past, that, all the places you made mistakes. You go into the future and you look at a load of potential reasons why things may or may not work out for you. And then you make a decision based on these things. But actually, we are creatures that are moment by moment. And we're here to instinctually use our emotions, our feelings, our body, our external environment to guide us continuously on this journey. So now, how how do I think? And I think you asked me, how is life different? I I don't see myself as an island anymore. I understand that I'm part of the bigger collective, a part of the bigger whole. I understand that any gifts that I have don't really belong to me, but I'm a vessel through which they are being shared and projected out into the world, actually for all of us to grow and evolve and expand. Um, I try very hard not to make decisions entirely from my mind. but I am a mental projector, and that is it is a challenge, but I really, really work to allow myself to be guided. And my energy, that one's huge, huge. So I'm a non-motorized projector, and I can work as hard and fast as everybody else because I've been deeply conditioned to believe that's the truth. And now I understand that rest is fuel, being is fuel, um, nurturing myself and doing things that just feel energizing and that are play and that are self care becomes before everything. That is now my priority because I will thrive and my work will thrive and everyone around me will thrive when I am listening to the cues of my body and when I'm in rest rather than push, 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 force, force, force. So I've stopped doing things for other people, stopped doing things that we were educated to believe is the only way because there's so much more.
Wow, that's so special.
Mm.
I love when I hear that from people. It's like if I say part of my work is I teach people to become cats.
Cats.
Yeah,
I
like
love that.
a house cat, you know how it like takes care of
Yeah.
itself, it stretches, it
Yes.
cozies itself up.
I
It's like
love that.
in this like Zen energy, its tail's just like zenning out too. And so
Exactly.
I love taking care of myself. And so I always appreciate when I hear someone saying they prioritize rest because it really is that's when like even if we go to the gym, that's when our muscles grow, is actually in the rest, not actually in the gym.
Mm.
So that rest is so important. I'd be so curious. I was reading in the projector that essentially you rather than going out, you're I guess drawing in. So on a pragmatic side, I mean, you have your business, right? And how does that work with client acquisition and being on social
Yes.
media and all of that? What's
Yes.
the pragmatic side of all this?
So this is a really big piece for projectors, especially when they first discover it. And they're like, how do I be seen without asking to be seen? So the trick for the projector, especially in business, so we are designed to wait for the invitation, of course. But what I always say to projectors is, let's say there is a projector woman and she's desiring to meet a partner. And in her mind, she's thinking, well, I can't make myself available. I can't ask somebody out. How do I initiate and allow myself to be seen? So, what she does, she absolutely does not sit in her room and close the door and put the TV on and wait for someone to come knocking. So, the thing with being a projector is about considering yourself to be a magnet and essentially filling up your cup and diving so deep into your self-worth so that your self-worth is so elevated. So you are a magnet. What do you want to attract? It's like giving people a reason to invite you. So make yourself available, make yourself. So what I would suggest to the female projector who's sitting in her room with the door shut is that she has a shower, she puts on something that makes her feel good, she listens to some music, she makes herself feel inspired, makes herself feel attractive in whatever way works for her, and then she takes herself to an occasion where she's in an environment where she's available. So you are always, as a projector, essentially filling up your own cup, making yourself super available and letting people know that you exist. So for myself in business, I have, just like everybody else, a social media space. So I have an Instagram presence, let's say. Anybody who comes into my social media space essentially wants to hear what I have to say and they want to see what I have to do. That is my space to speak and share. And if anybody doesn't essentially want to hear it, they can leave that space. And that's really the way that you need to view it. This is your space to make yourself available and to share what you know. But I would never, for example, I would never cold call a client. I would never reach out to a client and say, do you want to work with me? Because essentially, I make the invitation available on my page by showing them what I do, by sharing my information and letting them know how it will work for them. But they very much come into me. They very much are drawn into my presence, into me creating magnetism within my own aura, if you like. So for a projector, it doesn't mean that you cannot go out and do things in the world. You can study a course, you can make a website. You're essentially build the foundations for your life to share your gift, and just allow people that are correct for you to come in and be magnetized by your gift.
Mm. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and thank you for the
Mm,
clarification.
mhm.
Now, for the listeners, there are other archetypes, right? Like a generator.
Yes.
So just so we can make a distinction here, how would that scenario, let's say with a woman in the room, differ from a generator as a woman that's looking for the same thing, or a coach online?
So for the 5 different types, you've got manifester, generator, manifesting generator, projector, and reflector. And they all have slightly different version of this activity, let's say. So to give it to you from the manifestor's perspective, they're only 9% of the population. And according to human design, they're the only ones who are here to initiate change. They're here to have an impact. They're here to essentially, they have this kind of direct connection to a divine inspiration. And once something drops in, they go. And there's no real external validation needed. They have no control over the timing. So it can actually be very difficult. For a manifestor, they need to be so deeply attuned to their intuition so they can understand the difference between intuition and fear. And they are so aligned that they understand when an idea comes through that is true for them, they just go. So a manifestor woman, for example, it would be very appropriate for her to be the one to actually initiate that conversation, to actually start the relationship, to make that happen, if you like. So once she drops in that she sees somebody that she's attracted to, that's the signal for her to move and make that happen. There's a real a difference there with the way they do things. The generator types are here to respond. So where the projector needs some kind of recognition or invitation, the generator process can be much quicker, and they can play with anything and everything that's going on around them. So if the generator woman were to be sitting in her house and she's in a bit of a funk because she wants to be meeting this partner of her dreams and nothing's happening, so she switches on the TV, and the TV says, an advert comes on about dating, and it suggests, have you been to the newest bar in London? That's a cue. And then she gets on the phone to her friend, and she's in such a bad mood because, she hasn't dated anyone in so long. And her friend says, have you tried that bar though? Because everyone's talking about it being the new place to meet somebody. You should go there. The generator, gets these constant breadcrumbs, these tiny little cues and indications all the time. So what we say to a generator is, if it appears in your head and it appears in some way outside of you, that is a signal. That is a breadcrumb. You can follow, you can choose not to follow. Of course, you have free will. The difference really with the projector is it's much more about true recognition. It's much more about somebody energetically calling you out into a space, because we have a voice that is, like I said, we're designed to see things a little bit differently, a little bit more efficiently than other people. Now, what happens for the projector from a young age is, if they constantly project their wisdom or their voice or what they see, it gets rejected because it's not for everybody. And other people are kind of like, hey, I'm on my own journey. Stop telling me what to do and what's right. And this is the process from a young age. So it's very much about, and then that can create a level of bitterness, a level of shutting down, a level of suppression. It's very much about your true gift and your wisdom being shared when it's seen by somebody that's like, you've got something that I want, and I feel it. I feel that in your aura. So that's the kind of subtle difference here. As a generator, they're designed to just play with every single cue and object that comes in their world around them and move based on that.
Okay. That's a really detailed description, which I really
Yeah.
appreciate. I mean, to be honest, like, just even if you look at the chart, like there's not like the ultimate simplest way to put any of this, because it's very I mean, it's
No.
combining all these modalities, right? It's
Yes.
very and the thing is, like we talked on before we started this podcast, like you and I are here in Bali, so the words, I'm like understanding literally everything you're saying,
Yeah.
because that's just how it is
Yeah.
here. We come to this place for all this. Um,
Totally.
but I can imagine for some people, they may not fully pick up every word, and that's okay if you're listening and you're at that point. That's why Sarah's here to help you understand it.
That's totally right. And I love that because my friends back in England now sometimes say to me, I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
what are you talking
Because,
about?
yeah, oh, they'll say, what does that word mean? And I forget that I'm like, oh, that to me is just such a normal word now. But it's like you're so deep in this experience that you forget that other people may not have been on that journey. But I do also really like that point because people think that they can come to human design once, and you can come to human design once and it will be really life changing in that moment. But the the kind of transformation comes in the practice, comes in the longevity, comes in staying and inviting it into your life and like being really present with it.
Okay, great. And this segues to my next question, which I'm so
Yeah.
curious about. What do you do when you first get your chart, and what would be like the stages that you would advise someone as they just learned their human design and they're like, okay, Sarah, you're talking really highly about this. Stay with it.
Yeah.
What can I do to start applying this?
So when you first come to human design, if it's resonating with you and you're in a space where you really want to kind of grow into self-awareness and maybe you want to understand yourself a bit better, there's something out of alignment either in your energy or your purpose, and you're looking for this tool, this like self exploration, then I would suggest getting a reading with an experienced practitioner, because your chart is a map of codes and you can read so much online. Absolutely, you can delve and you can get a really good understanding online, but what you read online will to some degree always be generic because it is for everybody. So do a little bit of research online, and if it's resonating with you and you like what you're hearing, then I would always suggest going to an experienced practitioner and just getting a reading, because they are going to go into your design, and that should be anything between 60 to 90 minutes, no less. And a good practitioner will probably give you a body of information to also start with first. Like, for example, I would give a video for the energy type so that when we come to our session, it's like all about you. And then that session is going to give you a really high level overview and hopefully blow your mind a little bit about how well it articulates who you are. And you may come to it with an intention or a few questions or something you're going through, and you can focus the chart specifically on that area. And then following that, because then you're going to know how it feels to you and if it resonates and what works. Following that, the journey is, there's a couple of different journeys. Like, say, for example, for me, I went into actually studying it. After I'd had my first reading, it was like, yes, this is it. I studied it and I learned everything I could. So you can get your own books, you can do online courses, you can integrate it into your life in that way and really stay present with those energies. Or you can work with a coach or practitioner that stays with you for a long time. So the programs that I now offer, I'm actually walking away from single sessions. And the only reason I'm walking away is because of this deep understanding I now have that in order for people to integrate it into their life, it takes time. And what you do is you move with somebody who can help you understand everything in your chart and what it means piece by piece and how it is currently manifesting in your life. For example, if somebody has a fear of failure in one of the specific gates in their chart, we can look at the ways that fear of failure is showing up in their life, how it's holding them back, what they're actually afraid of, and how to overcome that. So when you move into bringing the chart into your life on a long-term basis, you go through each layer, each archetype, each piece, and you let it present for you in your life, depending on what's going on for you. Like my own design keeps showing up for me in new ways all the time. And I've been with this for a few years now. So it never stops. It just keeps evolving and growing.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, to try to really understand it on your own, I think, especially when you come across for the first time, you're just in over your head.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it does give you a bit of information, right? Like your
Yes.
basic, your archetype, and um,
Exactly.
what when you were mentioning this, and this was something that was interesting. So you talked about um, okay, so we all have a strategy, but then we all is there archetypes for the authority as well?
Yes.
What
So
is there multiple, or how does that work?
the authority, I'm just going to look at your chart. Yeah. So the authority will typically be one of the centers. And depending on the type, depends on which center you can have defined as your authority. And there are different ways of this presenting. If you are splenic, for example, your authority is your intuition, and you are very much designed to be a moment by moment impulsive person who listens to those voices in their head. But it's moment by moment, and it can also change. It's not for the long term. It is literally what is happening right here, right now. What can I hear? Where am I being guided towards? So that's an example of a splenic authority. To give you another example of an authority, might be a mental projector like me, which is only 2% of the population. Projectors are designed to really speak, to really move through their decisions by using their voice, by allowing the energy of their voice to carry up and out of their body and to feel what those words mean and to hear how it sounds, rather than when you're speaking to take any advice from another person, to take someone's opinion. It's really movement of energy. That's what we want with this kind of authority. It's allowing what your body is holding on to come up and out so that you can feel your decisions. You might have somebody else who is emotional, and that essentially means that you are guided by your emotions and you have these natural fluctuations of emotion that are here to allow you to be a deliberate, conscious creator. And what do I mean by that is not irrational, not reactive, not responsive in the moment to what's coming up for you, but rather understanding that everything from anger to sadness to frustration to, ecstasy are all valid and are all perfect. They're just bringing you to a different observation of what's going on around you. And if you can be present with your emotion, it will be guiding you like, yes, this feels good. No, this feels bad. So essentially, that's the kind of way authority works. It's having these different ways of coming to decisions, rather than, like I said, to be in your head going, if I do this, it means X, Y, Z. But if I don't do that, it means X, Y, Z.
Hmm.
It's just not about language. It's about being so present.
Okay, that makes sense. So I'm really curious. I always take it all in because my brain's catching up to
Yes.
every word you're saying.
Yeah.
So it
That's the
takes
way
me
to do
it
it.
takes my brain a moment to process what you're saying. Um, so I'm so curious. Let's say I feel like you're a human that's very in tune with her body, which is so beautiful to see
Hmm.
and witness because um, yeah, it's such an honor for a woman to be in her body, I think,
Hmm.
and a man too for that matter.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, let's say I'm a person that is not in my body, or they think they're in the body, but then when it comes to like actual movement or feeling into their senses, and because what we're talking about a lot about is inner listening, but not from the mind, from the body. So what would you suggest, or maybe with your clients, what's the journey from the mind into the body? How does one start to get into the body?
So it's a journey, and it's never it's a constant ongoing collaboration and partnership. And this is where the embodiment practice comes into it. So for me, when you know your own human design chart, you can look at your open centers. When you see which open centers you have, those are the places that you tend to need to set boundaries. So if you're open in both the head and the ajna, for example, it's a really good idea for these people to start setting boundaries around how much information they receive and from how many different sources, and to have real time designated for contemplation, quiet, meditation. Because essentially, if you look at your open centers, you start to understand the places that you're receiving in all the time. If you can start to set greater boundaries around those areas, you're going to be less stimulated. And this is a good thing because we're always so overstimulated. And that's when you can start to become more aware of, like, oh, I taste this, I hear this, I see that, I feel this. You start to become more consciously attuned. But essentially, there's nothing really groundbreaking I can give you here, except to tell you that it is a journey to be in your body. It is meditation, it is movement, it is food, it is being present, it is slowing down. It is all the things that we do in the kind of biohacking world. I can see you've got blue blocker glasses on, right? It's everything that allows your body to become more sustained in a healthy way. Is going to give you feeling, is going to give you that understanding of what it means to feel good and to not be so loud up here all the time. I incorporate meditation and breath work into my practice with my clients. And the reason I've incorporated breath work is because it takes you deeply into a space of the subconscious mind. It helps to switch off this conscious mind up here. Because as humans, and I practice breathwork myself all the time, because it is a practice even for me to constantly remain in my body and to not be too dominant in this place. So essentially it's practice and it is embodiment, and it's being, like we said in the beginning, aware of what's going on in your external environment, because everything happening around you is becoming you, essentially. So being really aware of every conversation you have and every meal you eat and every environment you're in, not in an obsessive restrictive way. For me, it's never about that. It's about allowing your body to guide you towards a person that feels good or a food that feels good. So it's a journey. It is just a constant journey, which is why human design will take you so far, but it won't do everything for you. You've got to turn that key. You've got to do the work yourself.
Yeah, I think this is really important for all of us. It's like uh, there's no quick fix or thing that you can just, oh, do this and then you're good. It's like one meditation. It's like, or I went to the gym once. It's all a practice. So
Yeah.
I guess it's nice. It's nice to see that you've
Exactly.
brought everything together though, with the like you've got like the data
Mhm.
that you get from human design, and then you've got the tools, which is like yoga, embodiment, body work, and breath work and meditation. That really brings the whole circle. So when you see someone's human design, I'm sure you now go, okay, this modality will help you, this will help you, this will help you. So you kind of become like an energy doctor. Is that kind of how you
I get,
experience it?
yeah, I love that energy doctor. I love that term. Definitely, I can see the ways in which somebody might be designed to be very physical and very expressive through movement, and somebody else might be designed to be much more gentle. So I can certainly see, yes, the ways in which somebody could be benefiting from using their body.
Yeah. And so I'm just curious about your work as well. Um, do you take your clients through like a 12-week program? Is it also, how does that work? Is it one-on-one calls, or is it through a digital transformation?
So what I have at the moment is an 8-week program, and it's one-to-one, and it's a session every week so that we can keep consistency and commitment in place. And this program is it's a of unpacking your human design. It's a synthesis of coaching and breath work. So what I do is I alternate between just a coaching session where we're unpacking the design and going into the detail of what it is and transferring that information to them so that they continue on the journey with it when we're not together. And then I take me now. So whatever comes up in the coaching session as a block or something we need to move through, the week after, I'll formulate a breathwork session, which means we can go more deeply into taking that energy up and out of the body. And I can speak really specifically to one of the archetypes, for example, in their design. Or if we're in a race and they're becoming clearer and they know what they want to manifest, it's like we'll use breathwork to just really deepen that clarity and to really bring that vision more to the surface. So that's the journey, and that's the way in which I'm currently working with clients. But I evolve my business all the time. Something I really learned in my own design is I'm highly curious, and I am not here to be very consistent. I am here to be constantly changing all the time. So something I've really learned is that I have all these tools and they come together and they work really well. but maybe in 3 months' time, I'll be working in a completely different way with completely different people. So I've really learned to give myself that flexibility. So at the moment, yes, I'm working on these 8-week journeys and we just synthesize all of those things. But my biggest, I guess, passion is equipping people with the knowledge so that once we're not together, it's not a codependent relationship. You know, it's like, here's the information. Come back to me when you need me, of course. Move on, take this yourself and kind of let it flourish in your life and see what happens. You've got the tools, you've got the information, because then they'll move on and move into something else and be expanding in another way.
That makes sense. Yeah, as I'm witnessing too, you seem like you're really connected to your feminine. So this constant changing is really probably also good for you as well. Um, I've got, just as we're almost coming to
Yeah.
the end of our podcast, I've got a personal question. Um, what is a healthy relationship like
Mm.
for you with social media and working in the digital space, um, with your energy and navigating your energy, but also still like outputting online? The reason I ask is this is my first year on social media. So I'm really trying to understand, like, how do I still nurture myself, but also share my message? I'd be curious, what's your like relationship with social
It's a
media and
really It's a really good question. And it's something that I think we're all, as business owners, really learning to adapt, regardless in some ways of your human design type, because social media is on its own journey and it is changing all the time. And I do feel there at the moment is this kind of consensus that it's becoming less inspiring, but it's becoming more like you've got to be so committed to it. You know, to be seen in the social media space where there's so much noise is becoming harder and harder. And I think this is almost regardless, let's say, of your human design. But I think for me as a projector, as a non-motorized projector, I've always really known that it's important for me to have those boundaries around social media. But so the way I approach it, okay, before I started my own business, I never really had a social media. I had an account. I didn't really use it. It never really meant anything to me. And I think that is probably very lucky because as I've gone into business, I now enjoy it as a creative space. Some of my personal gifts are I love to speak and I like to write. And I like, I travel all over the world. So I do happen to have this collection of imagery that makes a kind of lovely personal portfolio. So actually for me, formulating that space, I see it as a creative space, as an outlet to share my thoughts and my knowledge and anything I'm feeling inspired by. And this is the way that I've used it. And it's been very easy for me to be present in the space when I need to and not be when I don't need to, because I generally am not, interestingly, I'm not somebody who's very drawn to technology. I found the shift into everything becoming technology in my workspace. I did find that a little bit difficult because I much prefer to be with people. Um, but now I step into, I guess, gratitude around the fact that I can be anywhere in the world.
Mhm.
A pandemic can be happening, and not only can I still be working, I can still be connected, I can still be inspired, and I can be having these conversations, which if you could see where I was living right now, wouldn't be a thing, wouldn't be an
Right.
opportunity. So I guess the way that I manage it is to have very clear boundaries. I work certain days of the week and I work certain times of the week. And I think when you come to exposing yourself to the social media world as a business owner, you will have a phase where maybe you're on it too much. Maybe you feel a bit too conditioned by the algorithm and you're trying to do what it takes to survive and thrive. But the way I survive and thrive in business is just to continuously nurture myself and my energy. Because what happens is that I instinctively flow in the social media space. I instinctively have words to write and things to say. I don't have to try because I feel aligned within myself energetically. If you're aligned within yourself energetically, flowing in the social media space will come to you
Mhm.
very naturally. If
Mhm.
you're sitting down trying to force something to say or write, or you're doing a reel that you don't really want to do, you can try it for a while, but
Mm-hmm.
there's no sustainability in that. Keep going. So I would encourage people to experiment and to play and to be really okay with failing, to really say, I tried that thing and it didn't feel good and I'm embarrassed. That's fine. Put it away. Move on. You tried. Because in the experimentation, I'm also a very experimental person, which I see in my design. In the experimental phase, I can say that didn't work. This feels aligned. And you just starts to undo itself. I don't think there's a real strategic rhythm. I think you find aligning yourself means that your business will flow in the social media space. And in terms of being online, I have plans in my future to have a fixed space where I will work with people in real life. And I really look forward to that time. I love the fact that one day that will be a part of my business as well. But right now, to be able to be open to the whole world and meet such incredible people is a gift. So
It really is. I just did my gratitude, and I was like, something I'm grateful for at where I'm at right now is that, like, during all of this, you can still facilitate transformation. You know what I
yes.
mean? Like, how special is that? We can just still facilitate transformation. We can still connect to people. And I love that you said, even during a pandemic, you're still thriving. Like, you still expand in this place where
Mm,
some people are also feeling contractions. So it is super special. For me, I'm a really sensitive human, like, and I do all the work, like the biohacking stuff. So it makes me even more sensitive. And so I'm always
yeah.
finding ways to, and trying to learn from people that are experienced in it and see, oh, is that working for you? Oh, that's not working for you. Like, how can I acquire healthy habits with the phone? Because interesting enough, there's not really a phone, personal trainer for a phone. And
No.
and there's not a model, right? Like, we all kind of have a little bit of a base model of nutrition and what you could do in the gym, even going to yoga and this, but when it comes to the phone, there's not really a model at this moment of what, like, a healthy relationship looks like.
Mm.
And so this is something that I'm always curious in right now.
It takes strength. I would, for years, I've never had my phone on at night, for example. That's just so instinct for me. No human should ever have their phone on at
N-
night unless it's
No.
some kind of obligation. Phone goes off at night and it doesn't come on until I've done my practices in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, because that's when I invite the world in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't invite the world in until I'm ready, you know?
I think for me, if that is my tip. Like, if people ask me, like, hey, what's one thing that is it. Please just don't go into the world as soon as you wake up. Like, be in you first and
Mm,
try to be with you at least for a significant amount of time, to be in you, what you think, how you feel.
mm.
Connect with yourself and then bring that into the world. But like that idea where you roll over and then this thing just comes straight in your face. It's like,
Oh,
oh man, that
like
is
an
not good.
assault. Yeah. No, it isn't.
It's just like, oh, that was a great sleep.
Yeah,
It's like you're straight into this thing.
awful.
I
Like,
know.
we're not meant to have the whole world at our fingertips within moments of opening our eyes. It's just not natural.
Oh,
That would be my other thing is to say to people, does it feel natural? Are you forcing this? Are you really, we know when we're pushing stuff, right? Does it feel natural? Are you aligned with nature right now? No? Okay, stop. You know, just it takes some real conscious effort, I think, on every human's part.
to have a healthy relationship with their phone. Yeah, it's a practice. It
And we
really
will
is.
all get that wrong sometimes. Yeah, we will all make mistakes. That's just who we're designed to know what works through what doesn't work, you know?
Hmm. So if you were to give someone advice on what, like, an energetic, healthy relationship with your phone, what model would that look like?
Well, for me, it would be switching it off 1 to 2 hours before bed and switching it on 2 to 3 hours after you wake up. And essentially using it when you need to use it. It's like you need to make a phone call, you need to send a text message, you need to post something on Instagram. Once you've posted it, get in, get out. and it's these kind of things that we can start to be aware of when we're picking it up. Like, check how, your phone will tell you, if you want, how many hours you're using it and how many minutes and how many times you've picked it up. The unconsciousness of picking it up is what we don't realize we're doing. So it would just to set yourself a challenge for a week and say, how many hours did I use it? How many times did I pick it up? Because within that week, you're creating some level of awareness, which is like, then you can hold yourself accountable through that awareness. So for me, the nighttime boundaries is everything. The understanding of going in and coming out when when you're meant to be coming out of it. And there was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was. I think it was about
Selfies.
yeah, selfies. Yeah, only 5 a day. Limit the number of selfies you take. I mean, we all know the phone is just like this incredible tool, but use it as a tool. It's a tool. It is. It is a tool. And if you're feeling down or sad or angry, just don't go there that day.
Oh,
Don't go
that
there.
is
Don't do
not
it
the
to
time to go
yourself.
in that space. That is just going to put a magnifying glass on your feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
One of the things that I've found amazing about all this is like, it's so strange, right? We're so conditioned to see each other's worlds. Like, you're gonna see my reality, and like I'm gonna post a picture or a 15-second story. But like, even just in this moment, like 15 seconds is how many seconds out of all the experience that I'm experiencing right now. And
Yeah.
then we base our judgment on that reality, where the person's putting themselves in the best position possible with the best lighting, with the best look. How does it look with my skin tone? And then that fabricated moment is then edited.
Mm.
So then, and of that moment, there's probably well, like for me, I'm a videographer, photographer. So I've taken like however many, and I'm finding this one epic moment out of all those that have been taken. And how about all the ones that are like, oh, delete that one, delete that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to
Yeah.
need that one. Like,
Yeah.
but we
It's so
fabricate this
true.
moment. And then that's how, so then we take that moment where that human's not feeling well or not feeling good inside themselves, and then they look out into the world on a fabricated reality that's edited down, is postured, is in all these things, that it's just where we're at. That's okay. Like, I'm not judging where we're at with the social media tool. It's just what we do. But as far as like in that place of self, to analyze or be like, wow, look at their life, it's like, man, it's one of how many moments that's fabricated. Like, this isn't reality. It's just a very sliver of it. And so it's
It's so
something I
true.
would invite in.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel that we're this kind of transitional generation, and I think that in the end we're going to move back to this place of reality, and we're going to move back to this place of communities and things being real and people being able to let go. But we're the generation that are making all those mistakes, like we're really learning what it means to live through the lens. But
Mm.
yeah, it's not a real world at all.
Yeah, and so I'll tell you what, it makes me laugh because like I feel my consciousness and my state is literally getting fried, like like in a sense, like I really feel crispy because I'm like,
Yeah.
I came as this like meditative yoga in the body, like spending time in forests and jungles, to like learning
Yeah.
how to Photoshop a look and how to alter things and all the technology and the softwares. But what I found out was like my reach was so limited. I was so limited to what I could influence and impact in just being in the world without using these tools. And
Mm.
here I was seeing all these great people like yourself. And like before, after you showed me, I wouldn't even know what a good or bad or any Instagram looked like. Had the
Mm.
awareness of your grandmother with Instagram. But through this, I've been like a diligent student, learning the tools to make everything look good, to make the messaging, all the transitions and all this stuff to basically send the message of you can be whatever you want to be, you can have whatever you want to have, you are your own ultimate superhero. It's like essentially my message. And I'm realizing like the more I learn these tools and softwares, the more impact I actually am having. And so it's had this, like I say, I've been getting it's been fried, but like only because it's all new to me, you know? And so, for example, like this morning, like before I go on and post, I'm like, I sit with myself and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? It's like, okay, I need to post to get the captions, this and that. Is then after that, is it time to go on Instagram to do business? Is it time to do messages? And then I think about my day and I'm like, no, it's not time to do any of those. Okay, so my intention is to go on, post, do what I need to do, and out of there.
Exactly. Exactly. You've just got to be intentional because it is just a rabbit hole that will never end. And as a business owner, for sure, you can put the pressure on yourself of like, must be more present. But ultimately, it's about knowing intentionally who your soul client is and how you would like to attract them and trusting that they will come into you and having those boundaries around like, I'm in and I'm out again. Because otherwise, you'll be in there for a really long time. You won't get anything else done.
And so, Sara, something that you may not know about me is I lived in Las Vegas twice, both times sober. And so I was really present to our humanity at that in that place, which was super special. I got to learn a lot about talk about human design. As like I saw the real world of human design in that one. It's really incredible. But one of the things I saw, which was interesting, is like the first time I wasn't as sensitive as I was the second time, but like to see humans on the slot machine is literally no different than seeing humans on this thing. It's like identical. And it's really incredible what the state of consciousness, what it does to our state of consciousness and where it takes us. So it was like, I actually at the end of my time halfway through, I actually stopped. I couldn't walk through any casino after that. Like I couldn't. I would walk around the building to get to my destination instead of having to go actually in the casino.
I would find that hard. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was a higher motivation. Well, actually, the second time I was there, out of like what happened to my life, and it was like one of the way. At this point, I hadn't created a digital lifestyle, so I didn't know. I only had sales experience, so I went back and did what I knew I did, but with a whole new level of awareness, and that was a. I had a lot of healing in that experience, though. That was really beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a lot of healing. It was a great experience. But basically, what I'm saying is because I could see the slot machines and seeing how easy you can get. I mean, these are designed by persuasive technologists in Harvard.
Yeah, exactly. We're being hypnotized all the time, literally hypnotized. Your brain is just like stimulation after stimulation, and it's so clever that it just becomes essentially a robot. It's not even thinking, it's just auto pulling that thing down, isn't it? Like, yeah, it's incredible.
And our mind, like I'm sure you've delved into this through our conversation, I'm sure, but like how like the mind is the body, and then the body becomes the mind, and then the body's just doing all these actions that it's unconsciously doing, and so it's just like just becomes this all just the sleeping state. And so this is something that I'm so curious about. Like this is in my future, it's something that I really want to be a part of, is the like, I feel like we're at a stage right now where like we don't have enough data on the long-term ramifications of what we're doing. And like you said, we're the generation that is like figuring out
guinea pigs.
That you can't smoke on a plane because there's babies around.
We are. I do feel like we're the generation of kind of people, not just the generation, but we're the era that are on this cusp of like revolution of change. It's like we've come through a certain amount, we've come through the technology, the internet, the burnout, all these things, and we're moving into this new emergence, this new way of doing things. But I feel to some degree like we're the ones who are figuring that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're the ones, I mean, look at, the next generation now, the millennials, are so much more attuned to how the babies coming through, the children coming through are so attuned to health and spirituality and alignment. Whereas, not that much older than me, it was binge drinking. It was
Mm-hmm.
drink, 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 drink.
Mm-hmm.
And actually now there's this awareness of like, oh, that does this thing to my body. Like smoking for my nan's generation was like, go smoke, have
Yeah.
fun, it's really cool. And now we're like, oof, don't do that. So I
Yeah.
think that we're these ones who are pushing us through these learnings so that we can actually emerge, if we do it properly, so that we can emerge as a collective of people that have changed in a positive way.
Yeah. And like, I mean, from my conversations with people outside of Bali, with what's happened, it has created, although it's been like this negative, so-called negative situation, it's also created change and wake up to be like, well, I need to take my health a bit more seriously. And
Mm.
so what I'm finding is like what I was saying 5 years ago is starting to like dilute in some of my connections and my relationships. Like I'm not
Totally.
nearly as far as an outcast as I was back
Yeah.
then. Like back then I was out there, like,
Yeah. And now everyone's like, oh, I want what you've got. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, totally, totally. And also, a big piece of what I do is working with people about fulfillment in their work and career. And everyone's going, oh my God, I hate my job and I spend all my time there.
Mm.
Yeah, don't do it. Like, do something
Mm-hmm.
else. Yeah.
And that's a reality. I can do something else. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can do it and you don't need
Yeah.
permission. You can do
It's
what you
your choice.
want.
Yeah.
Really?
Exactly. Yeah.
What will my boss do?
Yeah. Exactly. This is two
Aw.
projectors laughing, saying, we're not designed to work like the rest of you.
Yeah, no, no, no. Like, I did not do well with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today, Sarah. We're coming towards the end of our podcast, and what I do is I ask a series of questions to all my guests, and it's just yeah, kind of like a fun little round. So before I ask you these questions, is there anything on your heart that you haven't shared today that you would like to share?
No, I feel absolutely complete. Thank you.
Okay. You're the first guest that has felt complete. So
You've done a good job. And I've spoken a lot.
yes, you have, which I appreciate though. You know, it's interesting too. I find the conversations and the energy different when I talk to men to women too.
Mm.
And the guy I just talked to 2 podcasts ago, his name was Adil, and he helps men get out of their ego. And I actually complimented him and was like, man, thank you so much for your space. Like it kind of felt like I was talking to all the girls or the women that I get to talk to. It's like a little bit different, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a little bit lighter, but that's good. That means you've really expressed enough today. So that's great.
Yeah.
So moving forward, what is your favorite app on your phone besides Instagram and the search engines and YouTube? What's your most used app or your favorite app?
It's WhatsApp, because I've been living away from my friends and family for years and years and years. And it's just made connection accessible. And it means that I can speak to people all over the world all the time and remain a part of my family and friends' lives, even when I'm not in the same place as them.
Yeah, I actually don't know anything but WhatsApp now as a communication tool.
Exactly. It's everything.
But let's
Yeah.
say, as far as like a tool you use, like a social media tool, is there a social media app or something to track your finances or anything? Is there?
I don't. I use Instagram, I use WhatsApp, I use Google. I have a steps counter. I honestly don't have. Oh, I have my banking app. I don't have many great apps. I'm not like really that high on what does what technologically.
Okay.
That's probably not the best answer you've ever had, but I genuinely, outside of WhatsApp and Instagram and Google and my bank, I don't use that much.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm always curious because like I like the amount of times people have recommended me stuff. I've now downloaded it on my phone. I'm like, nice, that was a good recommendation. But I have
Look,
WhatsApp.
the other one I would recommend is just for women because it's to track your cycle, and that's an absolute game changer called
Oh, that sounds like a
Kindara.
good app.
Yeah,
What's
I think
that app called?
it's Kindara or Kindara.
Mm.
I think it's Kindara. I do use that. And for a woman to just track your cycle every month is so essential. So that's a really good one. And it's very simple. You don't spend much time in there at
Kindara.
all. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Kindara, yeah.
My partner will find benefit in that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my partner, yeah.
If she benefits, you benefit. So
I
it's all
do.
good.
I do. We're talking about optimization, right? So it's like all my environment,
Exactly.
anything I connect, even my toaster, I have it optimized.
Exactly.
What is your most gifted book? One that,
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, one that I recommend to everybody and would give to everybody.
mm-hmm.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So I love to recommend to everybody top 5 regrets of the dying. And
Ooh.
it may just have been a moment in time for me, but I read that book on a plane, the cover, finished the whole thing. And it was a really perfect transitional moment where I was looking to move out of my career. And it was so inspiring. It was like a woman who's a palliative care nurse who basically witnessed death repeatedly and is able to speak into the things that human beings said let go a long time ago. It was so incredible, so inspiring. Yeah, I love.
Amazing. I'm just read, and I actually can see it right there, the book of The Art and of Living and Dying by Osho. And so it's a really great topic.
I haven't read it. Oh, okay. I love Osho though.
It's a deep one. I couldn't read it during the week because I was like, I need to be like
Really?
here.
Why?
Because it's like too contemplative. I'm like, he's talking
Yeah.
about these deep subjects, and then
Yeah.
I'm gonna go post about something. Like what? I just went to
Look,
the.
I'm a sucker for a deep book.
It's a deep one. If
Yeah.
you are a sucker for a deep one, I'm going to share something deep with you then that I learned from this book that I'm actually going to do at some point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do have resistance to do it. So I know that I'm going to need to be in a space, a time, but I can feel like the power that's going to have. Buddha, I guess, before he would welcome in the disciples for training, or I guess going through enlightenment camp, he would send the disciples to the morgue, essentially, and go witness bodies burning day in and day out. And the reason that is that for 3 months, he said, go sit there and contemplate every single day. And then after 3 months, we'll start our work together. And basically the the message behind it is like how impermanent everything is and how you're impermanent, and the contemplation of your impermanence. And to go witness that, I mean, in the, is it the Ganges in India, they do this as well. So like, this is something that I was like, wow, okay, I've got a space to open up into, to be in these topics. Because I mean, the thing is conventionally, we don't really talk about it. We don't really look into it. And in the West, we've got a very poor relationship with it. So to have a book that goes like straight into it, it's like, it's powerful. It's a powerful book.
Yeah. Really? That sounds amazing. I'm going to put it on my list. Thank you.
Yeah, I would recommend it. Now so segueing to our third question.
Yes.
Say we could put a billboard up in London, and we could get 1 million people a day walking past it, and you could put a quote or 2 to 3 sentences on that, and you could get that message out to the world. What would that say?
Okay, the first one that springs to mind. This is really random because it's by Dolly Parton, but I just think it's so frigging genius. Um, Figure out who you are and then do it on purpose.
Mm.
It's brilliant. It's everything. For me, it's everything about human design. It's like we're not the same as each other. Don't try to be the same as other people. Nothing is designed to be put in a box. No one is designed to be put in a box. But we don't know ourselves. Go and take that journey, figure out who you are, and then just be authentic. And that's what the world needs from everyone. So that, yeah, I love that quote.
Mm. That's a really good one. Yep,
Mm.
that's a great way to close our session. That's a really great
Yeah.
quote. I really appreciate it. Well, Sarah, I must say it has been absolutely lovely connecting with you and getting to understand. I mean, you've got a lot in there with that human design. You've got a wealth of information.
Yeah, I have a lot up here.
I should just go in there and I have a USB thing. I should just download it. You just put it all into here for me and then I can put it right in my computer.
Please. I would love that. We'll probably be able to do that one day. So.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, that's so true, actually. Joke,
Yeah,
not a joke.
terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, upload
It's
all the
been
space
so
in there.
nice to speak with you, Matt. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been so nice to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I appreciate you taking the time and sharing all your wisdom. If anyone wants to get to know you more or get to know your work, how can they come connect with you? Where's the best place?
The best place is probably Instagram. That's where you're going to get to know a little bit of me and a little bit of my work. So that is at Soul Stories HD. I have a website, soulstorieshd.com. And those are the two easiest places. All of my contact information is in there.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you taking the time. And this was another episode of Inside Mentor's Mind. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, my love.